Welcome to this week's class in Chassidus. We're going to be learning a beautiful Chassidic discourse from the Rebbe. The name of the Chassidic discourse is called the David Avdi, King David, my servant. The Rebbe said this Chassidic discourse in Shabbos Parshas Vayigash in the year Tafshin Lamed Beis, exactly 50 years ago. The Rebbe went on to certify and edit this Chassidic discourse in honor of Hey Teves, the 5th day of the month of Teves, in the year Tafshin Nun Beis, 30 years ago. So again, the Chassidic discourse is based on the verse of the prophets that say, David Avdi Nasi Lahem La'ila, my servant King David is going to be the prince of the Jewish people forever. This verse is weird. It comes into the Haftorah of this week's Torah portion, Parshas Vayigash. So I ask a simple question. Seemingly, what's the connection between the Torah portion and the Haftorah? Is that both of them speak about the connection between Yehuda and Yosef. In other words, in the beginning of Parshas Vayigash, it speaks about Vayigash Elav Yehuda, that Yehuda comes to Yosef, and the Haftorah it says, take one stick and write Yehuda's name, take another one, write Yosef's name, and bring the two of them together, and they'll become one nation. Yehuda and Yosef will become one nation, and they'll have one king. So seemingly that's the connection. But if you look more specific, when Yehuda approaches Yosef, in this week's Torah portion, it comes out, Yosef, so to speak, on top of Yehuda. Yehuda's approaching Yosef, who's higher than him. In approaching him, in other words, Yehuda's coming to Yosef because he needed something from Yosef. He needed him to free Benjamin, and also the way Yehuda speaks to Yosef HaTzadik. What does he say when he speaks to him? Bi Adoni, please my master. He calls him a master. Yidavenu Avdecha, let my servant speak. And the fact is, Yosef was the king over everybody, including Yehuda. So in the Torah portion, it comes out Yosef is a very high level, and Yehuda's approaching Yosef. In the Haftarah, what does it come out? The Abdi David Melech Alayim Lo'ilam. And David Abdi, my servant King David, is going to be the prince over everybody. So in the Haftarah, it's just the opposite, that Yehuda is the one that's in charge. Yehuda is the big man. Now, the fact is, these verses are weird. It's in the Haftarah of Parshas Vayigash. And then in the Haftarah comes out Yehuda's the one in charge. And Yosef, so to speak, on a lower level. But since the Haftarah, we know they connected to the Torah portion, and since the Haftarah, it says clearly that Yehuda's the one in charge, Yosef's coming to Yehuda, so obviously in Vayigash Elav Yehuda, even though superficially it looks like that Yosef's in charge and Yehuda's coming to Yosef, but the fact is you must say that there is a underlying message here that really Yehuda's much higher, because that's the connection with the Haftarah. Otherwise, what's the connection? However, when it says Vayigash Elav Yehuda, Yehuda's coming to Yosef, so to speak, Yosef's higher. So obviously, that's in a revealed way, that Yosef's higher, Yehuda's coming to approach Yosef. But obviously, in a concealed way, in a hint way, Yehuda must be higher. And in the Haftarah, it spells it out in a revealed way to show you that Yehuda's higher. Okay. So what the Rebbe is saying is as follows, to recap and clear in what the Rebbe is saying in short, that the Haftarah is usually connected to the Torah portion. So if it's connected, the message of the Haftarah has to be the message in the Torah portion. Since the message in the Haftarah is the way Yehuda is much higher, so and in this week's Torah portion it shows seemingly Yosef's higher, obviously there's an underlying theme that really Yehuda is higher. And the question is, where do we see that? And the Rebbe is going to explain that in this discourse. Now, to go a step further, the Rebbe says, this idea that we're saying, that by Vayigash Elav Yehuda, so even in the revealed way, Yosef's higher, Yehuda's approaching Yosef. But in a concealed way, there obviously is a component where Yehuda's higher. And that's the connection to the Haftarah. The Rebbe says this idea is also self-understood if you look in Torah, which is the classic Chassidic discourse in the Alter Rebbe on this week's Torah portion of Parshas Vayigash, in the Chassidic discourse that starts Vayigash Elav Yehuda. So he says as follows. He talks about the idea of the Beis HaMikdash, not the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in Jerusalem, and he says the Beis HaMikdash was made from doimim, inanimate objects, earth, stone, brick, etc. Not like the Mishkan, the tabernacle, that only the earth, the floor of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was made from earth. However, there's doimim. However, the walls of the Mishkan were made from tzemeach, things that grow. And the covering of the Mishkan were made from urios, which comes from animals. In other words, why specifically is the base of Mikdash made from doimim? In the Mishkan, it's made from doimim, tzemeach, and chai. And doimim is the least vitality. But the base of Mikdash, the everlasting temple, why is it made from doimim? Why isn't it made from tzemeach and chai? So the Alter Rebbe explains, because this that we look from our perspective, that Medaber is the highest, then chai, things that are alive, then tzemeach, things that grow, then doimim, so to speak, the lowest. You know, that's how we look at it. It's called in Seder Hishtalshus. The way things flow, it's going down from Medaber, the highest level, to chai, to tzemeach, doimim, so to speak, is the lowest level. But if you look at its source, the source for doimim, the source for inanimate objects, is actually higher than the source of tzemeach and chai. Like, for example, there we give an example. We know there's heaven and earth. So when Hashem created, so what did He create first? First He created the heaven, and then He created the earth. So the earth comes later. Seder Hishtalshus in the order of the flow of creation. But in its source, what was originally in Hashem's mind and Hashem's thought? He wanted the earth. So even though earth came after heaven in creation, but in the source, earth was first. In other words, the fact that the earth was created at the end shows that in Hashem's initial thought, that's what He wanted. So earth comes before the heaven in Hashem's thought. As the famous expression is, Soif Ma'asav Machshava Tchila. Whatever you do at the end, that was your initial thought. You have an initial thought, but to get to there, you do a bunch of things, and then finally you get the end product. So the end product is what you wanted initially. So the same thing also, this applies when you look at the spheros, the 10 spheros. We're going to break it down into Zah, which is the midos, the 6 emotions, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, which is called Zeir Anpin, the small face, and Malchus. So that's also similar to Tzemeach and Doimim. In other words, in Seder Hishtalshus, the way the flow of energy goes, so Zah comes before Malchus. The emotions come before Malchus. But in its source, Malchus is actually higher than Zah. And the same thing also, when Mashiach comes, what's going to be higher? Malchus, which is a lower sphere in the flow, is actually going to be higher than Zah. Like we famous line that says, Eishes Chayil Ateres Baila, that the woman becomes the crown of her husband. Malchus is actually higher than Zah in its source, and when Mashiach comes as well. Why? Because when Mashiach comes, what's going to happen is, what's going to be revealed is that Malchus is actually higher than Zah because of its source. Now, so that's why in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, so what were the walls made of? And the roof was made out of tzemeach, things that grow, and things that have life force. However, in the Beis HaMikdash, what was the Beis HaMikdash made out of? Doimim, inanimate. Why? Because since the tabernacle was a temporary abode for God, so since it was temporary, so it worked according to the flow of energy from the top to the bottom. So therefore, the floor of the Mishkan of the tabernacle was doimim, the walls were tzemeach, and the roof was chai. Why? Because in the way things flow in natural sequence, so things that grow is higher than doimim, things that are alive is higher than tzemeach. So therefore, the roof is chai in the tabernacle, the walls are tzemeach, and the floor is doimim. That's in a temporary abode. But when you're dealing with the Beis HaMikdash, which is the ultimate dwelling place for Hashem, which is called Diras Kvatz, where Hashem dwells in a revealed way, but in a consistent way, that the Beis HaMikdash was just like the way it's going to be in the future. And in the future, Malchus, which is connected to Doimim, is higher than all the spheres. So therefore, even the walls and even the roof of the Beis HaMikdash is all Doimim. Why? Because again, since the Beis HaMikdash is connected to the future, and the future Malchus is higher, Doimim is higher, and that's why the Beis HaMikdash was built from Doimim. So the same thing also applies to Yosef and Yehuda. Why? Because we know spiritually, Yosef represents the Zah, the 6 midos, the small face. Yosef is the tzaddik, Yesod Olam. Yosef is more connected to the sphere of Zah, and specifically Yesod. Yehuda, on the other hand, is connected to which sphere? Yehuda is connected to Malchus. So today, until Mashiach comes, Yosef is higher than Yehuda, because Yosef represents Zah, he represents Yesod, Yehuda's Malchus. So in this present state, until Mashiach comes, Yosef is much higher. Why? Because when you look at the flow of energy, Zah is higher than Malchus. And that's why Vayigash of Yehuda had to approach Yosef. Because in this world, Yosef is higher, and he says, Bi Adoni. In other words, what is he saying, Bi Adoni? That he's asking, please, in me, Malchus, since I'm lower than you, I need you to draw in Yosef. I need you to draw in Zah, Yesod. Why? Because in this world, Malchus receives from Zah. So spiritually, what was taking place? Yehuda was coming to Yosef and saying, Yosef, please, I need you to draw within me into Malchus Zah and the sphere of Yesod. However, when Mashiach comes in the future, what's going to happen? Mashiach comes, what's going to be revealed? What's greater? Malchus is greater. And Malchus, its source is higher than the source of Zah, of the 6 Midos and Yesod. So then when Mashiach comes, what's going to happen then is Ve'avdi David Melech Aleim Lo'ilam. King David's going to be the king. Why? Because what's going to be revealed is that Malchus is really where it's at. The source of the highest source is in Malchus. So based on that, the Rebbe asks, since, what are we saying? Vayigash of Yehuda. That Yehuda is approaching Yosef, and Yosef is what? Zah. The 6 Midos, Yesod, which represents by Tzemeach, the emotions that grow, which is, today it's higher than Malchus, which is Doimim. But the fact is, if that's the case, that in this world, Zah is higher, and Yehuda is coming to Malchus, Yehuda is coming to Yosef that he should bring into him the Midos. But the fact is, in the Chassidic discourse, where it speaks about Yigash of Yehuda, he's not explaining about the benefit of Zah. He actually starts it by saying why the base of Migdash is made out of Doimim, why the tabernacle is made out of Doimim. And what did he say? Why? Because it's connected to the future. So he starts by talking about the power of the base of Migdash, which is represented by Doimim, which is connected to the future. So since in the Chassidic discourse of Vayigash of Yehuda, which seemingly should talk about Zah, about Yesod, about the Midos, the way it works and say there's also that Yosef is higher, but he starts by talking about the base of Migdash that was made from Doimim. Why? And because the base of Migdash is comparable to what's going to be like in the future when Mashiach comes in Olam Haba, and then Malchus is going to be greater than all the Spheroids. And since he starts by talking about Malchus, about Doimim, so even on a revealed way, Vayigash of Yehuda, what does it mean? Yeah, he's asking that Zah should come into Malchus. But the fact is, since in the Alter starts us talking about Doimim, obviously in Vayigash of Yehuda, in an internal way, in a concealed way, obviously the power of Malchus over Zah, just like it's going to be in the future, is lying within the message of Vayigash of Yehuda. So the Rebbe is bringing a proof now, and a strong proof from the Alter Rebbe, where he speaks of the fact Doimim, of the Beis Migdash, is connected to the future, and he brings about Vayigash of Yehuda. So obviously the component, at least in a concealed way, in a deep way, is that Malchus and Yehuda is much greater. And the question is now, back to the original question, how do we see that really, that Malchus is greater in Vayigash of Yehuda? So now the Rebbe is going to explain, based with an introduction, that when Yehuda comes to Yosef, and what does he tell Yosef? He says, please, I want you to draw within me Zah into Malchus. So Yosef's on a higher level, in the way it's in this world. He's a level of Zah, 6 Midos, Yesod, and he says, please, Bi Adoni, draw energy into me, into Malchus. So what does he tell him? Why should you do it? And he says, Ki kamoicha kaparoi. So what does that mean? What is the connection? The reason why you should draw energy into Malchus is Kikamoich Kamar. What's the connection? So the Rebbe explains, according to Kabbalah, and he explains very powerful, and he says like as follows. Yosef represents the 6 Midos. He represents Zah. He represents Yesod. Yehuda represents Malchus. Say the Rishtal, just the way the flow of energy goes, the 6 Midos are higher than Malchus. So if Yosef is busy taking his powerful energy and bringing it into Malchus, it's called a Yerida. It's a downgrade for Yosef. Why should Yosef do it? So obviously Yehuda had to tell him why he should do it. So Yehuda explains to Yosef, on the contrary, by going ahead and providing the 6 midos, providing the Yesod into Malchus, you're going to actually be elevated. Why are you going to be elevated? Ki kamoicha kaparai. That's like a code word that you're going to be elevated. What's the connection? Ki kamoicha kaparai, you're going to be elevated. And the Rebbe explains like this. On a spiritual level, what is parai? Parai represents in the spheros. Which sphera? The highest sphera. The level of Keser, and we know Keser is above Ishtalshalos. In the flow of energy Ishtalshalos starts where? From Chachma. Chachma Bina Das, Chesed Gvura Tiferes, that's Chod Yisod Malchus. The 10 spheres, that's the flow of energy. Intellect to emotions into Malchus. What's above the flow of energy of Ishtalshalos, the way things flow from one to the next? That's Keser. Parai is connected to Keser. And that's why we find interesting in the Torah, what does it say? When Yosef collected the money from the Egyptians, and he says, you're going to give a fifth to Parai, and 4 hands are going to be yours. So what's this fifth to Parai, and what's 4 hands? So they explain it according to Kabbalah, very simple. What is the 4 hands referring to? It's referring to Chachma Bina, and Zeir Ampin, and Nukva. Which means Chachma Bina, we know, is 2 intellectual spheroids, and Zeir Ampin is 6 midos and Malchus. In other words, the 4 that you keep, Chachma Bina, Zeir Ampin, and Nukva, intellect, the 2 levels of intellect, the emotions, and Malchus, that's yours. However, the Chamishis, what's the Chamish? What's the 5th? That's Keser, above the charts. That stays with Pari. That's for Pari. In other words, and there it goes even a step further. First, what do you have to do? First, you give Chamishis LaParai, the 5th goes to Parai, Kessel goes to Parai, and then afterwards the 4 becomes yours. What do you mean? The 4 is mine. I'm just giving away a 5th to Parai, but the verse doesn't say that. The verse says you give the 5th to Parai, and then the 4 becomes yours. Why is that? Because when you give away the 5th to Parai, which means when you connect to Keser, which is above Ishtalshalos, what happens then, even the 4, which is yours, of Ishtalshalos, you have it on a whole different level. You know, it's Chachma Bina, the 6 midas in Malchus, that's ours. That's how the world operates. But when we connect to Parai, we give Chamishis LaParai, Keser, above Ishtalshalos, then there becomes an elevation in intellect and all the emotions. And like the Rebbe brings in the Zohar says, what is Parai? Parai is this Pariyu v'isgali minei kol mahirim. What does that mean? And the Rebbe explains. What does it mean that Ispariyu? It's going to be totally revealed. All the lights are going to be revealed. And the Rebbe explains, when you draw in Keser, which is above Ishtalshalos, which is represented by Parai, so then also the revelation, things that are revealed. What are the things that are revealed to us? Levels of Ishtalshalos, Chachma Bina and the Zeir Ampin and the Nukva, the 2 levels of intellect and the emotions and Malchus. Then what happens is, then they also get from the level of Ispariyu, from the Keser, which is from above nature, above all the levels of Ishtalshalos. Now, so Rabbi, ask 1 second. What are you saying? When you connect to Keser, so then that above Ishtalshalos comes into Ishtalshalos. But the fact is, that's the way it normally flows. Generally speaking, all levels of Ishtalshalos, the four hands, Chachma Bina, the Zeir Ampin, the small face, all the Midos and Malchus, where does that come? It comes from Keser, from above Ishtalshalos. So what are you saying? When you give to Para, you're going to have it in Ishtalshalos. That's the normal flow. And Never explains very simple. Generally speaking, from Keser into the intellect and emotions, into the Zeder Ishtalshalos. So Keser is not connected to it. It's separate. Keser is above Ishtalshalos, like a crown. And therefore, because Keser is disconnected, so Keser is above Ishtalshalos, and there's a disconnect, and then you have Chacham Bin Das, and that's why you're able to have the 10 finite midos in a finite way. What happens is Chamishis Lapari means, and then the 4 will be yours, that that means that when you connect the paroi, then you're able to bring down Keser into the midos of intellect and emotions in its revealed way, and what's felt within the midos, what's the undertone, what's the foundation for it, what's the underlying theme that's felt, that if you feel the energy of Keser in them, you feel the level of above Hishtalshos in the spheros. And then it's a level of Ispariyu. What does Pari mean, Ispariyu? Which is above Ishtalshla. So when you give the fifth to Pari, when you connect to Keser, which is above Ishtalshla, the normal way, it's fine, Keser is out there, and the Midas are down here. But the goal is, when you give to Pari, then you infuse into intellect and emotions the level of Keser. Now, how does that happen? How do you infuse from Keser that all the spheres should feel above Ishtalshalos? And that happens through the specific Midah Yesoid. Through Yesoid, that's what connects infinite to finite. Why? Because what is the level of Yesoid? Yesoid is the one that actually gives everything into Malchus. And in order for Yesoid to connect to Malchus, that comes through Keser. So Yisoid is the one that brings it into Malchus, coming from Keser. So Yisoid acts as the bridge between taking from above Ishtalshos into Ishtalshos all the way down into Malchus. And this, the Rebbe explains beautifully, that's why Paroi in the Torah, and again, remember when we say Paroi, what are we referring to? We're referring to Keser. And he tells Yosef, and who's Yosef? What are we referring to Yosef? Yosef, he knows the Midah of Yisoid. So think about this. Paroi, represented by Keser, is speaking to Yosef, represented by Yisoid. And what does Keser tell Yisoid? You're going to be in charge of my whole house. And based on you, the whole nation is going to get stuff. And no one's going to stand up against you. Why? Because when it comes from Pari, which is represented by Keser, which means not the regular Keser, but the added infinite light of Keser that's connected to the world, in all the levels of all the spheres, including Keser, how does it happen? Through you, through Yosef. And Yosef represented by Yisoid. Al Picha, through the mouth of Yosef, which is Yisoid. Now, but nevertheless, what does Pari tell Yosef? Even though through you, everyone's going to get, that means Keser is going to come down through you into all levels of Ishtalshos, even in Malchus. But he tells him, Raka kisei egdal mimeka. But the chair is going to be above you. What does that mean, the chair? So the Rebbe explains very powerfully. This that Yesoid brings in from Keser into Malchus and in all the spheres, that's the level of Keser which has, even though it's above Ishtalshos, it has a connection to Ishtalshos. Even though it's above nature, it has a connection to nature. And that's why the revelation of Keser is that the components of Ishtalshos, all the 10 spheroids, is in the way of Ispariyu. So it's that there's some kind of connection. But when he says kisei, what does kisei mean? The chair mean? What is a chair? That elevates you, that makes someone greater and taller, etc. And those the component of Keser, which is totally elevated and not connected to Ishtalshos, that cannot come in through Yesoid. So in other words, like this. Yesoid has the power to bring in the lower level of Keser, the part of Keser which is connected to Ishtalshlos, to come into Ishtalshlos. Yesoid, which is Yosef, does not have the power to bring in the higher level of Keser into Ishtalshlos. Only the lower level. But that's, the Rebbe says that, who can do that? Yosef is limited. Yosef is limited. He can bring in the lower level of Keser into Ishtalshlos, including all the midos, intellect, emotions, and malchus. The higher level he cannot bring in. However, when it comes to malchus, which is a lower sphera, has a superiority quality over Yesoid. Why? Why is that? Because Malchus, we said the source of Malchus is where? In Keser. Which level of Keser? Not the lower level. The source of Malchus is in the higher level of Keser. Now, in Malchus, the revealed part is Malchus. The source is concealed. How does Malchus reveal its source? It reveals it through Zeram, from the small face, through the Midos, through Yesoid. So what happens is when Zah, which is represented by the small face, the 6 Midos, Yesoid, reveals within Malchus its source. It reveals its source, which is basically the essence of Keser. So what happens then is, even Zah gets elevated to that higher level. In other words, like this. Yosef on his own can draw in the lower level of Keser into the spheres and into Malchus. Malchus, on the other hand, is connected to the higher level of Keser, but it's concealed. Yosef can reveal within Malchus its source, and once it reveals it, it's able to draw in the higher level of Keser, and then what happens is, by Zah revealing the power in Malchus, Zah is able to benefit from the higher level of Keser. And that's why Yehuda says to Yosef, beautifully, Be Adoni, be within me, Adoni my master. Ki kamoicha kabare, which means that when in Malchus, be Yehuda, in Malchus, Adoni, you're going to bring in, Yesod is going to bring in, which is referring to Yosef. So what's going to happen is, when Yosef is going to bring within me into Malchus, and you're going to reveal my source. In other words, Malchus is going to get, the source of Malchus is going to be revealed, which is referring to the essence of Keser, the higher level of Keser. Through that kamoicha kaparoi, you, Yosef, are also going to have the essence of Keser within you. So here you see the powerful idea that what happens is this interaction between Yosef HaTzadik and Yehuda. So Yehuda is telling him, you think by going ahead and feeding Malchus, it's a downgrade, it's actually an upgrade for you. Why? Because your avoid is to bring Keser, the lower level of Keser, into the world, into all the spheres, including Malchus. So you can say it's a downgrade. But the fact is, from that perspective, maybe. But Malchus has the power, can reach the essence of Keser. And but it's concealed within me. But when you mashpia within me, when Yesod brings out, reveals my source, then obviously you can benefit, because you'll have from the essence of Keser, and that's why it's worthwhile for you to go ahead and provide Yesod into Malchus. Now, so based on this, Rabbi asks now an interesting question. He says as follows. This that Yesod draws into Keser is because Yesod, what does Yesod normally do? Yesod provides for Malchus. Look at the spheres. It starts with intellect, emotions, Yesod, and Yesod goes into Malchus. But nevertheless, this that Yesod brings into Malchus, what we say, it's in the lower level of Keser, the way Keser is connected to Yishtalshalos. So what's the big sales pitch of Yehuda telling him, Be Adoni? That when Malchus is going to get from Yesod, so that then the essence of Keser is going to be revealed, and you're going to draw in from the essence of Keser. Isn't that what Yosef always does? Isn't that what Yesod does? What is Yehuda coming? What is the sales pitch? Yehuda is coming with a sales pitch. When you draw Yesod into Malchus, we're going to get the essence of Keser. What do you mean? Yesod is always drawing into Keser, so he can get it without Yehuda telling. What is Yehuda telling him? What's Yehuda enlightening him? Obviously, he's telling him something deeper. And the Rebbe explains very powerful, and this is huge. And the Rebbe says what Yehuda is telling him is as follows: not that when Yesod is mashpia into Malchus, that's he always does. He doesn't need Yehuda to tell him. Be Adoni means as follows. He's pleading with him. Be Adoni, please my master. It's not that Yesod is being mashpia into Malchus. That Yesod has the goods. Yesod is the teacher. Yesod is the parent. Yesod is the giver. The giver is giving into Malchus. That's not the point. What he's telling him, Be Adoni, that in Malchus should draw in what it needs from Yesod. Be Adoni. It's a fine line. I want to explain it because this is the base of the whole Maimer. This is the Chiddush of the Maimer, and this is a whole novel idea into education, parenting, any type of communication. What Yehuda is telling Yosef, normally you're the giver and I'm the receiver. Okay, you always did that. That's not what I want from you. Be Adoni. What I want from you is allow me, the receiver, to receive what I need. Who's in charge? Not the giver's giving. Allow the receiver to get what it needs. It's like the child needs something. Allow me to be who I am. Allow me to receive what I need to receive as a child, a student. Allow me to receive what I need as a student. Allow me to receive what I need to receive. Not that you're the giver and I'm the receiver. Because when you're the giver, I'm the receiver, it's all about the giver giving. Here it's all about the receiver, what the receiver needs. The receiver should need what the receiver needs. The receiver should receive what the receiver needs. It's about the receiver. In both cases, a giver and a receiver. But in the first case, the normal procedure is the giver and the receiver receives. And whatever you receive, you say thank you. Here Yehuda is saying him, no. True, there's a giver and a receiver. And you're going to be the ultimate giver. But it's not about you giving, it's about me receiving. Allow me to receive what I need to receive. Allow me to get what I need to get. Be Adoini. Be Adoini. Please, my master, allow me to take what I need to take. Allow me to accept what I need to accept. Yes, you're the giver, but it's not about you giving, it's not about what you're giving and how you're giving, it's about me receiving. Just allow yourself to be a conduit to that the receiver should take what it needs to take. Huge. In other words, when you're giving, so it's all about you giving. It's limited to what you're able to give. When I'm receiving, I'm going to receive whatever I need, and whatever I'm missing, I'll be totally full. In other words, like this: the revelation that takes place from Keser, that comes into Malchus, when Malchus is the receiver through your side, because it goes through your side, is much higher than the revelation that comes from Keser when your side is giving into Malchus. The flow is, it comes from Keser, it goes through intellect, goes through emotions, through your side into Malchus. But when your side is the one giving it, it's a much lower level. When it's Malchus receiving it, it's a whole different experience, a whole different revelation, and it's a whole different level coming from Keser. And Rebbe explains as follows. And Rebbe is going to explain it beautifully. But this is the main point. Generally speaking, when we're dealing with Malchus, what's the analogy, practical analogy Chassidus uses to explain what Malchus is? The analogy of a smear of Malchus in our koiches, in our abilities that we have of the soul, it's referring to specifically the ability to speak. Malchus peh, like it says in the Zohar, we say it Friday night before Shabbat. Malchus peh. Malchus is connected to speech. What's the connection? What's the reason? The connection between Malchus and speech? Because what's the difference between speech and all the other attributes that we have? All the other attributes that we have, intellect, emotions, thought, etc., it's all for myself. You can think by yourself, you can be happy with yourself, you can think about yourself. Speech is not for yourself. The purpose of speech is to share your intellect, your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, etc. Speech is all about the other person. Not only that. When a person has an idea and a thought, you have an idea, it still remains an idea and a thought, it's still your thought, even after you share it. But once you talk and you share something with someone else, the speech you gave is gone. It's not part of you. You might have new speeches, but the one speech, once you said it, it's gone. It's disconnected from the person. So speech is for somebody else, A, and B, once you say it, it's gone. The same thing also, a step deeper, Derba says, let's look at the speech before you actually spoke the words you're going to say. It's the ability to speak, the koyach, the ability to speak, that's within the person. What's the power of the speech? The ability to speak is that you have the ability to go ahead and express something outside yourself and to give it over to someone else. So there's three components of speech. A, it's for somebody else. B, once you say it, it's gone. And C, even a step further, that the ability to speak is also for somebody else. So that's all what? In the practical application of Dibur, of speech which is connected to Malchus. But now let's look at Malchus itself. Malchus is in its source, which means, what's the first world we have Malchus? In the world of Atzilus. Before it comes down to this world to give vitality and energy into the world. Even Malchus, when it's in Atzilus, where it's all God, but Malchus and Atzilus represents already the fact that it's the source of creation. Just like speech, in the ability to speak, it's all about something else. Malchus, because it's connected to speech, Malchus, even in its original source in Atzilus, it's all about creating the world, which doesn't happen until worlds later. Now, one of the reasons, the Rebbe says, one of the reasons that the power of speech is actually connected to the essence of our soul. In other words, higher than all the other attributes, intellect, emotions, thought, doesn't go to the essence of your soul. Speech does. Why? Because all the other attributes we have, let's say intellect, emotions, thoughts, what are they? They're just revealing what's going on inside. There's nothing new. Intellect reveals your soul's perspective, concept, etc. So it's revealing the soul. So generally speaking, when you reveal something, it's close to the thing that you're revealing it. So thought, intellect, and emotion reveals what's inside. Now, speech, what's speech? It's not about, you're not revealing anything. You're basically going outside of yourself. Your intellect stays connected to you. Your emotions stay connected to you. Your speech is not about, once you say it, it's gone. It's not about revealing what's inside. It's actually the opposite of revealing. In other words, it's not, you're totally going outside of yourself. You're not revealing yourself. You're the whole point is sharing outside of yourself. Speech is all to expression to outside of yourself. So since it's all about outside of yourself, you're not revealing something from within. What you're doing is you're actually you're sharing the essence of your soul in speech. So it's not limited to revealing some kind of layer, a level. In other words, speech is connected to the essence of your soul. And it's connected to the essence, the most deepest concealment part of your soul. The most biggest secrets come out in speech. Why? Because you're revealing your whole essence. In intellect, you don't have to go so deep. This is how I think, and this is my thoughts. Till you speak it. Your emotions, it's very close to home. How you feel, that's what you feel. It's revealing what you are. In speech, you're revealing the essence of who you are. Now, the Rebbe explains like this. It's brought down in Torah, which is the Hasidic teachings from the Alter Rebbe. Let's look at the earth. Earth has the greatest level of bittul, the greatest level of acceptance. As we see, on the earth, everyone steps on the earth. Everyone steps on it and doesn't scream, "Get off of me, stop standing on me, you're bothering me." Why? Because earth represents acceptance, bittul. How does earth have such powerful acceptance? I mean, you can step on it, you can jump on it, you can insult it. It's accepting everything. And not only step further, you can step on the earth, and guess what? Tomorrow it's producing grass and trees and whatever it may be. Why? Because the earth comes from a very, very high source. As we learned before, that in the Hashem's initial thought, what did he want first? He wanted earth before heaven. So earth comes from a much higher place. So the greater the source, the greater the acceptance. The lower the source, the less the acceptance, the more the arrogance. So let's look at doimim. Doimim Sameach Chaim Adaber. Doimim is the one with the least amount of vitality. Doimim is connected to its higher source. So doimim has the greatest level of acceptance, bittul. Why? Because things that grow, think about it. It grows very, very high, it grows arrogant, it's bigger, it's nicer, it's beautiful, etc. Bittul is not its strong suit in Sameach and Chai. We have to work on it. But real bittul is in doimim. Now, why is that? Because the source of doimim is higher than the source of Sameach, so the source of doimim has a greater bittul. The same thing also, let's look at Zah, the 6 midas of Malchus, which, as we said before, is compared to Shemayim and earth, heaven and earth, and doimim and Sameach, inanimate and things that grow. This that Malchus is able to accept has true bittul, Because the source of Malchus is where? Is in Keser. Higher than the source of Zah. Zah, source, is in a lower level of Keser. Malchus is in a higher level. And because it's in a higher level, then it has a greater bittul. And that's why that the analogy that we use for Malchus in our koiches hanefesh, in our attributes, is speech. Malchus and speech are connected. Why? So what do we say? Because the acceptance in Malchus is very, very deep, and the acceptance in speech is also very, 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 very deep. It's totally accepting. Now, let's look at the acceptance of speech. Why? No, speech goes to the source of Malchus because it has the greatest amount of bittul. Let's look at the acceptance in speech. Why is speech like on such a low level and has the greatest acceptance? There's two reasons. Number one is someone speaks. Look at not talking about what your person's saying. The idea to speak, not what you're saying, but speech. When a person speaks, speaking, there's no quality in speech. You can read someone else's thoughts. You can read someone else's thoughts. Your thoughts. The act of speech is nothing. It's just a delivery boy. In other words, all the other attributes, intellect, you're revealing intellectual ideas. It's brilliant. Emotions, feelings, etc. So there's a quality to it. There's a definition to it. There's substance to it, etc. Speech is just a tool. In other words, there's nothing quality of speech. Just to clarify again, when we say speech, we're talking about literally speaking. We're not talking what you're speaking, because you can speak amazing things, you can speak not necessarily great things. We're talking about the concept of speech, just the verbal articulation of the words. The words is nothing. It's words. And the proof is you can say stupid things, you can say smart things. Speech, there's nothing to it. That's number one. Number two is, speech, as we mentioned before, why is speech like so accepting? Because speech, when a person speaks, it's easier to sit quiet, meditate, relax, etc. When you're speaking, I'm giving up of my private time, my quiet time, and I'm sharing it with someone else. So speech represents humility. Because speech is nothing. The idea is amazing, but the speech is just a delivery boy. Delivery girl, it's a delivery. That's A. And B, you gave up from yourself. Instead of me doing what I want to do, meditate, think, dance, sing, whatever, cry, whatever I want to be busy with, I'm sharing with someone else. So speech represents the ultimate acceptance. B, it's just delivering stuff. There's no really, there's just delivery. And B, you're giving up for yourself. So that's how we see practically in speech. That in speech, again, it's ultimate of acceptance because A, it's just sharing words, and B, it's giving up of self. The same thing also applies to the sphere of Malchus. In other words, Malchus what is Malchus? Malchus is not revealing a certain emotion. Malchus in itself, it reveals other emotions, other intellect. But Malchus is just like speech, it's just a delivery boy. It's not revealing anything that it really has of it on its own. That's point number one with Malchus. And B, instead of Malchus is doing whatever it wants to do, it's busy creating the world, creating people, etc. So Malchus and Dibur have both components at the total level of acceptance. Now this level, that we say that Malchus is all about acceptance, is actually mentioned in the Alter Rebbe's Chassidic discourse in Torah, that Yehuda, which we said before, Yehuda is connected to the sphere of Malchus. Yehuda represents the idea of Haidaya, acceptance, bittul, 100% acceptance. In other words, it's deeper. It's not only acceptance. Yehuda is a whole different level of acceptance. In other words, Haidaya means you're acknowledging. Bittul's accepting, and Haidaya is even deeper, you're acknowledging. In other words, the person is so accepting that you're totally giving yourself up to the person that you're accepting for. Not only are you accepting, but you're accepting yourself into someone else. You're allowing yourself to be accepted by someone else. You're totally giving yourself over to somebody else. Now, so that is what the level of Malchus, which is the ultimate in acceptance. And that's why it reaches the essence of Keser. Now we're going to go a step further. We all know that when a person has intellect, great ideas that you intellectually grasp, and then you use your thought to think about it, and then you articulate it with speech. So speech is just a thoroughfare. It's not that speech is connected to it, it's a thoroughfare. It's a pipe that's bringing the deep ideas and deep thoughts. But what happens when you take your deep ideas of intellect and thoughts, and you bring it through this, so to speak, pipe, shallow conduit of speech, what happens, interestingly enough, when you speak it out, the intellect gets stronger, more than it was before, and more than it was when you thought. So here you see something unique. On one hand, we said that what speech is nothing. Speech is total acceptance. But on the other hand, when you use your speech, the intellect becomes stronger. The thought becomes stronger. That's in terms of intellect. The same thing applies with your emotions. When a person, let's say, has feelings of love, those are powerful feelings. But when you share them in words, you speak words of love to someone else, about someone else, love gets increased. Literally by speaking about it. It's a speech verb, but the fact is speech has the power to increase intellect and emotions. And the same thing also, any other midos that we have. Any one of the three intellects, any one of the six emotions, any feeling, any intellect that we have gets increased through speech. Now the question is, why is that? We just said that speech is nothing. Why is that? And the answer is because the source of speech is in the essence of your soul. Again, speech is really nothing, but the source is in the essence of your soul. So when a person draws down from your essence of your soul into the intellect and the emotions while you're speaking it, so on one hand, speech is nothing, it's just a conduit. But on the other hand, it's connected to the essence of your soul. So you're drawing in a higher source into the intellect and the emotions. And because you're drawing in a higher source, therefore the intellect becomes stronger and the emotions become stronger. In other words, to take it a step further, you have intellect and emotions, and you have speech. Speech is a higher source than intellect and emotions. But now when you take your intellect and your emotions, and you bring it into speech, so you're connecting to the essence of your soul, but still, and that's why it becomes stronger. But what we're saying is that speech itself is still connected to a higher source. In other words, to clarify the distinction, intellect and emotions comes from a lower level. Speech comes from a higher level. When you take your intellect and emotions and bring it through speech, you're getting it, so to speak, from an intermediate level, not necessarily from the speech itself a source. The speech source itself comes from a higher level. Now, why is that? Because when you person has intellect and emotions, which comes from the revealed part of your soul, not the essence of your soul, and when they go through your speech, in other words, what happens when going through speech, you're connecting to the essence of the soul through speech, which is the infinite part of the soul, which is able to go down from one level to the next, because as you know, Malchus goes down to the lowest level. But nevertheless, even this component, which is higher than the source of intellect and emotions, because obviously that's why he's able to add into intellect and emotions, but nevertheless, the part that it connects to, it's like the lower level of Keser. It's infinite, but infinite the way it's connected to reveal part. But speech itself, which is all about not revealing, it's a speech, it's the conduit, it's total acceptance. That source is in the essence of the soul. Now, so again, just to recap, there's three levels. There's the essence of Keser, which is above Ishtalshelus. There's the next level, which is above but connected, and then there's the reveal part. Intellect and emotions is connected to the reveal part of Ishtalshelus. when you take intellect emotion through speech, it's connected to the part of above Ishtalshalos, the lower level way it's connected to Ishtalshalos, and speech itself is connected to the essence of the soul, which is connected totally above Ishtalshalos. So based on this, the Rebbe explains what we brought before from Torah from the Alter Rebbe. When Yehuda says to Yosef, "Be Adoni," and what we explained before, he says that within me should come in what? From Yosef. Not that Yosef should be the mashpia into the makabel, but the makabel should receive from the mashpia. Even though technically it's the same thing, but no, on a spiritual level it's much deeper. What he's asking is, allow Bi Adoni, allow Malchus to receive what it needs from Yosef HaTzadik. So the Rebbe asks 1 second. Yehuda's asking from Yosef HaTzadik. Why didn't he ask him that he should draw into Malchus? Why did he ask specifically he should be the receiver? Allow him to be the receiver. Allow me to be the receiver rather than you be the giver. So the Rebbe said he's going to explain this base when it's known. We know there's something which is called oiros and kalim, lights and vessels, which practically in the spheroids it's Zah, which is the light, and Malchus is the vessel. Attached names to it. Yosef is Zah, Yosef is the light, and Yehuda is represented by Malchus, the vessels, compared to light and vessels. Now, when light comes into a vessel, why does light come into a vessel? Light wants to be contained in a vessel? And the answer is because the source of the vessel is higher than the source of light. Now the light knows it. The light knows that even though it's a vessel, but the source is much higher, and therefore it's willing to go into the vessel. So the light is the light, the vessel is the vessel, which is limiting. But the light knows the vessel's source is higher than the light, and therefore it's willing to be contained in a vessel. Why is that? Because what is light? Light is all about revelation. So therefore, the quality that the vessel has from its source, that when the light goes into the vessel, it's going to be able to connect to its infinite source. Why? Because when the light comes into the vessel, even though it's going to a vessel, but it's connected to the infinite source, and by going into the vessel of all the vessels, like whether it's intellect, emotions, malchus, through that, the light, which is infinite, higher than Kalim, in a revealed way, it's able to go down from one world to the next, Bria, Yetzira, Asira, until it comes down to this world. So the same thing also, that's what light and vessels. The same thing applies with Zah, the six Midas and Malchus. Why does Zah want to give energy into Malchus? And we know you cannot give if you don't want to. Anytime someone gives, you have to want to do it. You have to be inspired, you have to want to do it. In Hebrew, it's called Ratzon. There's no flow of energy without Ratzon, without will. Will is key. So why does Zah want to go into Malchus? Because it feels and it realizes, it recognizes the quality of Malchus, that it's in its source, it's much higher. In other words, what it feels is that when Zah goes into Malchus, so Zah is going to reach a higher level. Why? Because through Malchus, it's going to go from the world of Atzilus and the world of Bria into the world of Yetzirah and the Asiyah up until this world. So therefore, Yehuda tells Yosef, Bi Adoni. I want that when Zah comes into Malchus, not because you're going to benefit from it, not because Zah is going to be complete, you're going to have to go down to Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, and you're going to benefit from the light. No. The goal is, again, the key difference. I want that Malchus should be the recipient. Bi Adoni, don't do it because you're going to benefit. Do it because Malchus needs it, because Malchus wants it. Don't look what you're getting out of it. Don't look what's in it for you. Look because Malchus needs it. And then if you do what I'm asking you to give to Malchus because Malchus needs it, not because anything you're going to have any benefits. So you're going to think I'm losing out. Why should I do it? So he tells him, no. Because when you do that, then then you're going to have such an elevation, you're going to go not to Kesser, the lower level, you're going to go to the essence of Kesser. Because the part of Kesser that's revealed into Zah, when it comes down from one world to the next world, that's the part of of Kesser, the infinite part of Kesser, which has the power to go down to one world to another, which is referring to the lower level of Kesser. You're shortchanging yourself. You're getting from the lower level of Kesser. If you're doing it because you're benefiting it, you're only connecting to the lower level of Kesser, which is a very high level, but it's the revealed part, and you're missing out on the inner part. But however, when Yosef HaTzadik, which is Zah, is going to give into Yehuda, which is Malchus, not again because you're going to benefit, but you're doing because Malchus wants to be the receiver, Bi Adoini, that's his request, then you will have the revelation of the essence of Kesser, the infinite part of Kesser, the higher part of Kesser. That's what Yehuda is begging Yosef. Don't help me because you want to benefit. Help me because I need the help. And when you help me because I need the help, what's going to happen is you're going to get from the higher level of Kesser, the infinite part, the essence of Kesser. So Rabbi asked a simple question, 1 second. You're coming to Yosef HaTzadik, which is represented by Zah. Zah is all about revelation. What does Zah do all day? It's giving. It's giving. It's all about revelation. And it's giving it's giving to Malchus so that it can get more revelation, it could do more and more and more. Yosef, in his bones, it's all about revelation. How are you going to convince someone that's all about revelation he should do something not for a revelation? Where's the profit? I should do because you want it. I do things because I want to do it. I want to be the giver. So the question is, how is Yehuda able to impact Yosef, Bi Adoini, that he should give Malchus what it needs because Malchus needs it, to be there for the child, to be there for the student because what the student and the child needs. It was to draw down gifts and blessings, not because you see a benefit, not because you're going to have anything for it. How is Yehuda able to inspire Yosef to do so? And the Rebbe explains with an introduction as follows. It's brought down in Likutei Torah from the Alter Rebbe in Parshas Ba'aloscha, and also in the Chassidic discourse of Parshas Vayigash, when Yehuda tells Yosef, Ki avdecha orav hasanar, because your servant, referring to Yosef HaTzadik, became a guarantor for the child, referring to Binyamin. So it's explained in Chassidus, and the Chassidic discourse that were mentioned from the Alter Rebbe, that the Jewish people are able to be guarantors one for the other. Why? How can we be guarantors? I'm me and you're you. How can we be a guarantor? Because the truth is we're really all mixed in together. Arvus comes from Muravim. We're all mixed up. We're all mixed in together. In other words, and that's one. The Rebbe says that's one of the reasons why the Jewish people are compared to our candelabra. The Menorah Zav Kula were compared to the golden candelabra. Why? When Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to make the menorah, how did he tell him to make the menorah? He says, Miksha tiyasa menorah. You should make it hammered out. It was one piece, and from the one piece you were able to separate and make a menorah out of it. What does that mean practically? You took a piece of gold and you banged it. So before this piece was on top, it comes on the bottom. And this piece before was on the bottom, goes on top. And then it somehow gets all mixed into the right shape, and therefore you end up being a beautiful menorah. So it's the same thing also. All Jewish people are really all together. And you can't say this one's higher, this one's lower. We're all one. And that's why we're called Adam. Why are we called Adam? Because all the Jewish people are one human being. Arvus, how can we guarantee one for the other? Because really we're all one. What does that mean? It never explains as follows. This that we say that we're all one, we're all one, is higher than the fact that we're mixed together. In other words, like this. When you say that we're all mixed together in one pot, okay, everyone's unique, everyone's separate, but we're all mixed together in one pot. Same thing also with the menorah. In other words, you had one piece of gold, and you hammered it here, and you hammered it. This was on high, this was on top. It came in the bottom, but kind of came on top. So there's still, you see that there was a top, there was a bottom, and now it's all one piece, etc. But it's still, there was a top and a bottom. There's still a top and a bottom. That's one level. This one's a top, bottom, and we're all connected. A deeper level is we're all one. Adam Echad, we're one. It's not about higher, lower. No, we are one. So when we say that we're all united, we're all responsible for another, there's two levels. One way is everyone is unique, but we each have responsibility for the other. We're all one nation. Multiple people, one nation. A step deeper is no, we're one. It's not one nation made up of multiple. We're one people. In other words, this that we're called Adam, because when you unify the different limbs in the body, there's two components to it. What does that mean? On one hand, we have different limbs in our body. And each one complements each other. And they work in unison. They work in unity, because they all need each other. In other words, on one hand you have the head, and you have the body, and you have the feet and your hand. But the fact is, the head needs the feet, and the feet needs the hand. The head needs the feet to take it somewhere, and the feet need the hand to give it direction. So when the head is giving direction, who's in charge? The head is. But when you have to go somewhere and the feet are taking you, then the feet are in charge. So when you divide it up in different roles and so even though yes, we're all part of one body, but nevertheless, everyone has its time that today he's the head, tomorrow it's the head, and so on and so forth. Everyone has their unique component. So on that level, yeah, there's a higher and a lower, but again, we're all unified. And the same thing applies to the Jewish people. What does that mean? Every Jew, every person has their unique quality. And whatever quality everyone has, that's the one that feeds the Jewish people with the quality, your unique quality. In other words, so we each complement each other, and we unify each other by each doing our unique gift that we have. In other words, there's today this one's on top, tomorrow that one's on top, today this one's on bottom, the other one's on bottom, and you don't know because it constantly changes. That's one level, that everyone's unique, and one day this one's in charge, the other one's in charge, but ultimately we're all together. But then there's a whole different level of unity. The unity is we're all part of one body. That means we're all one. It's not about higher, lower, me, you, today, tomorrow. We're all one. And that applies to all the limbs that we have. And the same thing also applies to the Jewish people. That all the Jewish people are really, really one. And therefore, because we're all one, we are one. So in other words, like this. There's two levels of unity. One is everyone's unique, but we're unified. And one is, no, we're really all one. So the rabbi says like this. When Yehuda went ahead and he was a guarantee for Binyamin. He was an Arev. What does that mean? He went ahead and he connected himself in the most strongest way. Because we know he said, if I don't bring him back, I'm giving up this world and the next world. I mean, he really committed to him. Where did it come from? Why would he give up everything for his brother? Because the fact is, it's not because he was doing something to our brother. He and his brother is brother. No, he's really one with his brother. Higher than I'm you and you're me and tomorrow you'll need me. No, it's not that. We're really, really one. So what do you mean? If Binyamin's not coming back, I'm not coming back. I'm willing to give both words because we're really, really one. And so there was this type of level of oneness, that we're all one. Who's the one that said it? Yehuda said it. And specifically Yehuda. Why? Because what is Yehuda? Which sphere? He's a sphere of Malchus. And what's the source of Malchus? Keser. And in Keser itself, the higher level of Keser, the essence of Keser, which is above division. So because Yehuda is Malchus, and Malchus is connected to the higher level of Keser, it's all one, therefore he was able to take on Arvus for his brother. He was become a guarantor for his brother because he was really one with his brother. And there was a step further. When Yehuda told Yosef, Ki avdecha arvus hanar, because your servant Yehuda, I took arvus, I was a guarantee for my brother. And the guarantee that I took wasn't because I'm me and he's him and etc. One today he's in charge, tomorrow I'm in charge. No. The reason why I'm a guarantor because we're all one. The message he was sending Yosef, we're really all one. Because in its source in Keser, there's no me, you, him. It's all really one. It's really all one. So when he said that to Yosef, Yosef was impacted by it. At least on a makif level. He was totally like, wow, we're really all one? And Yosef felt that we were all one. And that's when Yosef, the Torah tells us, well, Yosef, he couldn't hold back. How could I not tell my brothers who I am? And that's when he confessed. He confessed when Yehuda sent home the important message that really we're all one, by demonstrating why he took guarantee for his brother. And based on this, the Rebbe explains what does it mean when he tells when Yehuda tells Yosef kamoicha kaparoi. What does that mean? Pari, we said, is what? Keser. Which level of Keser? The highest level of Keser. So he's telling ki kamoicha kaparoi. You, Yosef Atzadik. Yosef, kamoicha, you. What, which is represented by Zah, Yosef is Zah, what's your real source? Not the Nishtalshalos, where it flows, the lower level Keser. No, your real source is Etzem HaKeser, the essence of Keser, which is higher than the lower level of Keser, which is a source for Zah. And in the lower level, there's different levels. No, the truth is that Yosef, you're connected to Pari, the essence of Keser. We're all one there. In other words, the reason why Zah was even created, a level was created, and even the source of Zah, which is Keser, which is the source of Zah, is the ultimate goal is to fulfill the intent of Pnimius HaKeser, the higher level of Keser. And by Yehuda, which is Malchus, and we know Malchus is connected to Pnimius HaKeser. Even after it comes down into this world, it's still connected and it feels its source. So he tells Yosef Atzadik kamoicha kaparoi. Remember, we all come from the same place. We're all one. So Yosef got it. He got it. He connected to it. The light bulb went off. And that because Yoda told them, really, we're all one. Don't do it for revelation. Do it because biadoini. There's something that I need. Don't do it because you're going to get something from it. Do it because I need it. Allow yourself to be a conduit, to be the flow of energy for Malchus, what Malchus needs. By doing that, you'll fulfill the ultimate intent of Pnimius HaKeser. Not that you should be giving because you're the giver. The receiver that needs, a child, a student, whoever needs, allow them to get what they need. Allow yourself to flow. It's not always about you. So based on this, the Rebbe explains the connection of biadoini, where Yehuda says biadoini, in other words, allow Keser, allow yourself, the Malchus, to be the recipient of whatever you have from Zah, from Yesoid. And what's the connection with kamoicha kaparoi? Because in other words, by kamoicha kaparoi, since we're dealing with the essence of Keser, since you're focused on the fact that the essence of Keser are all one, that's the reason why biadoini. In other words, when Yosef realized, and he got it, that the ultimate source of Zah, knows why was Zah even created to begin with, is Pnimius HaKeser, not the lower level of Keser. And to that inspired Yosef to give and allow himself to Malchus to receive what it has to receive, so that you can fulfill the ultimate of Keser. So in other words, the first thing you're saying is that when Yosef got ki kamoicha kaparoi, that's when he was able to be Adoni. He was able to allow Yehuda to receive what he had to receive. That's one component. A step further of the connection between Kamoich and Kamari and Adoni. So the first, to recap, just to get clear, so we're going to the second one. The first one is Ki Kamoich, because when Yosef got Ki Kamoich, the source, the ultimate goal is Pnimius HaKeser, so therefore he allowed Adoni for Yehuda to receive what he had to receive from Yosef. Another explanation ever says that through the fact that Yosef goes ahead and gives Malchus what it needs because of Malchus, through that now he'll receive Pnimius HaKeser, Kamoich Kaparoi. In other words, like this, it's a circle. When Yosef got the concept Kikamoich Kaparoi, and therefore he was able to allow Malchus to receive. So he wasn't giving because he was giving because Malchus needed it. So it wasn't coming from a reveal because he wanted some kind of benefit. And he was doing it to fulfill the intent of Pnimius HaKeser, Kamoich Kaparoi, and that's why he allowed Malchus to receive it. And then he received full circle. He got the revelation of Pnimius HaKeser. So based on this, Rebbe explains this is the connection of Vayigash Elav Yehuda, where Yehuda comes to Yosef, with the Haftarah that says of Vayigash, where it speaks about and that in the future, ultimately, Yehuda is going to be the one on top, higher than Yosef. Why? Because even when Yehuda came to Yosef, So what looks like Yosef's giving to Yehuda. No. But Yosef already got the point that Yehuda is really where it's at. That Malchus is where it's at. It's that Malchus has a need. So it wasn't Yosef was coming big shot. Okay, but I'm going to be the one to give her. Yosef got it that Malchus needs something. And not only that Malchus needs something, afterwards he's going to actually receive from Yehuda. Because by him allowing himself that Malchus to receive what it needs to receive from Yosef HaTzadik, then he will actually receive from Pnimius HaKeser. Just like what's going to be like when Mashiach comes, that Zah is going to receive from Malchus, so Yosef already got it then. So here, it's a very powerful insight what the Rebbe is saying. That Malchus receives. From who? From Yosef. Why did Yosef allow himself for Malchus to receive? Because he realized what the Kavanah of Pnimius HaKeser, it's all about one. And once he allowed him to do that, Yosef himself was able to receive from Pnimius HaKeser. The Rebbe finished off and he says it's known, the explanation of the Frierdiker Rebbe, on the Chassidic discourse of Abdi David Melech Aleim, and the reason that King Mashiach, Melech HaMashiach, is called David HaMelech. Why is he called David? Because what does David represent? King David represents the idea of Anova and Bittul, humility and acceptance. Because even though King David was a king, but he called himself, you read in the Psalms, Ani Be'evyoin. He was a king, but he called himself poor and destitute. Why? Because he had ultimate humility. And the same thing also when it's going to come Melech HaMashiach, the King Mashiach. Even though he's going to have tremendous qualities, he's going to be the King Mashiach. As we said, it says in the prophets, "V'nacha ala Bruach Hashem," the Spirit of God is going to be on him, and he's going to learn Torah with the patriarchs and Moshe Rabbeinu. But nevertheless, the quality of Mashiach is going to have the ultimate in humility and ultimate acceptance. How's that going to play out? That he's going to learn Torah with simple people, learning Torah with the Avos and Moshe Rabbeinu. That's huge. But when he sits down and learns with a simple person, that's humility. Why? Because he's giving Malchus what it needs. That's humility. And the Rebbe says we know that all the revelations that's going to happen when Mashiach comes is all dependent on our avodah now in Galus. So self-understood that if you want to bring Mashiach, you want Mashiach to come quicker, is to learn Torah and teach Torah, the revealed part of Torah and the Chassidus part of Torah, to every single person, but even and specifically to simple people. And you should do it with humility and acceptance. In other words, learning Torah, spreading Chassidus, should be in a way not because of a benefit you're getting from it. Like we say, Talmida Yosef Mikulam. You teach, so you're getting something because you're gonna have more clarity. No, you shouldn't learn because you're going to benefit from it. But you should do it because the student needs to learn. Not about a benefit, not anything you're going to have from it, just because the student needs to learn. And like we explained just before at Lent, Bi Adoini, Yehuda's plea, Bi Adoini, do it because the student needs it. It's not about the teacher, it's not about the parents, it's not about the educator. It's about the students, about the child. The child needs it, give the child what the child needs. And the more it's harder for you to do, because as simple as a child is, that's where it's at. And when you do that, you'll bring in the highest level, you'll bring in the Pnimius HaKeser, the Etzem HaNefesh. And by behaving in such a way and learning Torah, and specifically with simple people, we will make Mashiach come quicker, and will actually usher in the promise of the Avdi David Melech Aleim Lo'ilam, that King David is going to be the king forever. The David Avdi Nasi Lo'ilam, King David will be the prince forever, and that's going to happen when Mashiach comes. B'Karov Mamash. And he had great and most powerful Chassidic discourse with powerful teachings about the ultimate in acceptance, humility, and by giving the giver what the giver needs, not because you're getting in benefit, that will ultimately create the greatest revelation. As Rebbe says, the greatest revelation of Mashiach coming speedily in our days. Hopefully, next class will be in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, with Mashiach Tzidkenu. Have a great and blessed week. Shavua Tov.
Moment of Wisdom. Sub-brief and life-changing moments. Join us. Subscribe to Moment of Wisdom channels on YouTube, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp.